Welcome to the state of Ohio. I'm Jo Ingles, sitting in for Karen Kassler. Chief Justice Maureen O'Connor has played key roles in state government since 1999. First, she was lieutenant governor for former Ohio Governor Bob Taft. Then in 2002, O'Connor was elected to the Ohio Supreme Court. She was elected twice more as Chief Justice in 2010 and in 2016. She's stepping down at the end of this year because she's 71, and Ohio's Constitution says judicial candidates are not allowed to run after turning 70. During her tenure on the court, O'Connor has worked to improve fairness through bail reform efforts and increased the role of specialized dockets to deal with Ohio's opioid crisis. O'Connor has seen a lot during her past 20 years in elected office. I recently sat down with her to discuss her career in elected statewide office. You broke ground as the first female Supreme Court Chief Justice and the longest-serving elected woman in Ohio history. Tell me about your experience in being a pioneer.
Well, let me first start by saying that, I've been extremely lucky, blessed, to have these positions that I've had in my career. And I know that does not escape me. Being the first woman to hold this position in, 217 years when I got, elected to it in 2010, it's an honor, it's a responsibility, in so many ways to be a responsibility. One, just the territory of the job, what comes with the constitutional description of the job and duties and, just the running of the operation. Obviously I'm just one of 7 votes when it comes to the cases, but the administrative role here is so important. And it is not lost on me that even though I've been doing this job for 12 years as Chief Justice, and right now, and for the longest time, I don't think about, I'm the first woman Chief Justice, until I realize the impact it has on other people. And that is part of the responsibility that I feel in this job, to demonstrate that the job can be done, not only well, but extremely well by a woman. I look back at my time when I was prosecuting attorney in Summit County for 4 years, and I look at the staff that I hired, the assistant prosecutors back then, and I look at how many of them are now judges in Summit County. And, and that progress, their path, I know many of them, all of them, our boss, look where she is. And that was an inspiration. They've told me that's an inspiration to them, and that's what allowed them to think they could do it too. And they did, and they were, they're still on the court. I'm proud of that. I'm proud of the fact that so many women that worked for me as an assistant prosecutors ended up being common pleas court judges.
What do you consider your greatest accomplishment?
You know what? I don't think in terms of what's the greatest thing or because there's a lot of initiatives, and I want to first start out by saying that I have not done anything by myself. If I have an idea, I am always coming up with ideas, but, some pan out, some don't. But it's the staff. If I didn't have the staff to bring those ideas to reality, and I didn't have the competent staff that I have, more than competent, the staff at the Supreme Court, in every division. I'm so lucky. The citizens of Ohio are so lucky. So let me say, I didn't accomplish anything by myself, and I was able to do a lot of the things that we got done because of the expertise and professionalism of our staff, because I coalesced, groups to ask them to examine, this policy, this topic, whatever. Tell me what you think. Give me your input. I did that routinely through task forces and, commissions and committees, and that's a great way to do it because they issue a report, and then that report has recommendations, And some of those recommendations are for legislation. Some of them are for rule changes in the court. Some of them, are just, advocating for, this or that or the other thing. So that, to me, is a formula that has worked, and I've used it, continuously since I have been Chief Justice.
You took a lot of heat over redistricting and the decision that was made by the court. What was that like on your end? And is there something that you wish you would have done it differently that you didn't do back when it was happening?
Well, actually, there were 5 decisions by the majority of the court declaring the maps to be unconstitutional, the maps that were approved by the Redistricting Commission. And, we followed the Constitution, and I have no regrets about that. There's nothing I would have done differently in the analysis or the opinions that came out about it. I am troubled by the intervention of the federal court in this state issue, and that was the declaration early on that you're going to have X amount of days, redistricting commission, to come up with a constitutional plan, and if you don't, we're going to use the unconstitutional third map that and it was kind of ridiculous. It's like having a fight between 2 kids, and you've got an 8-year-old and a 6-year-old, and you say to both of them, "You better settle this, or the 8-year-old's going to win." I mean, whoa, that's exactly what it was. So there was no incentive for them to come up with anything better than the third map, for gosh sakes. But they did the 4th map and the 5th map, and it was, a variation to the 3rd map. So that was very disconcerting. To see that, and I have heard, from other, federal judges that, man, they can't really see the basis for why the intervention was done. But nonetheless, it was done, and the state, through, I guess, the Attorney General, has taken the matter to the United States Supreme Court. So they're going to challenge it now in the United States Supreme Court. I don't know whether the court's going to take it. I kind of doubt it is going to, but, that allowed them to then kind of extend, what was happening in the case. And meanwhile, the third map is used, and it was used for, November's election.
Ohio has seen a lot of shifts over the past couple of decades politically. How has that influenced you? How has that caused you to work differently at the courts or make changes at the court level?
Politics should have no place in the courts, whether it's a municipal court or the Supreme Court. Every court in between. If you're a judge, do not bring your politics to the bench. Don't bring your religion to the bench. Don't bring any of that stuff, because you have to be a neutral. And politics is one of the worst things that can infiltrate how a judge does their job. If you worry about, what's the political ramifications here, and why is that all the 600-pound gorilla? It's because judges stand for election, and judges stand for partisan primaries, and then nonpartisan, allegedly, except now, if you're in the Supreme Court or if you're appellate court, you're going to have your party designation on the ballot. According to that's the legislature at work. So I think that complicates things. But people, judges have to stand for election, and people say, you got to stand for election. You've got to get the support of your party. So you're going to make political decisions. And that's not so much in the lower courts, the trial courts, that infiltration. I don't see that there, or the appellate courts. But people always expect the pressure is going to be on the Supreme Court to bring their politics to the bench. And never would I do that. Absolutely never. And I've obviously demonstrated that because I'm a registered Republican and used to be touted by the Republican Party as somebody that they should speak about and use as an example, etc. Now I understand they've taken my picture down in some headquarters, including the state headquarters, and others they've turned it to the wall. Does that? Am I hurt? Am I bothered? No, I've got to say that's petty, and it reflects more on them than certainly what it does on me. And I also look at the approval of what we did in redistricting, the letters that I have gotten from the public. People, I don't know, people that say, I've never written, to a public official before, but I feel compelled to say, keep up the good work. We appreciate what you're doing for the state, for democracy. That is that affects me, because that lets me know that it makes me feel good that people appreciate what we do and they notice. I guess that's and certainly that's a positive effect, as opposed to turning my picture to the wall. Just that's crazy. That's crazy. Just like the what they were talking about for impeachment. Some legislators were going to file impeachment articles of impeachment. Are you kidding me? Because of a vote, and you're going to target me? Well, I had 3 other votes. You want to impeach the 3 others that were in the majority? And is this going to be the standard now? If we don't like what the Supreme Court does, we're going to threaten to impeach? Wow. We don't live in a dictatorship. That is just, I guess they don't understand the Constitution. Maybe they ought to go back to 4th grade. But anyway, so no, politics and the repercussions of politics have never, bothered me or, been a motivator.
Yeah. There's a resolution right now in the Ohio legislature that would increase the passage threshold for a citizens initiative to 60%. I know you generally don't like to comment on legislation itself, but that kind of impacts one of the avenues still available to citizens. Do you see that as a problem?
I do see it as a problem. The latest version of that legislation is that they're going to require the 60% passage rate for initiatives initiated by the legislature as well. So, it was kind of like, okay, we'll bite the bullet, we'll do a 60% as well. And it's to amend the Constitution. Okay, we just had 2 constitutional amendments on the ballot in, this last election. Issues that amended the Constitution. And where did they come from? They came from the legislature, not citizen initiated. They were ridiculous fluff pieces. Judges have to consider community safety when they set bail. I mean, that was actually a scare tactic. We live in such a dangerous community and world and state, and we better, pass this so you're going to be safer. I explained how the bail system works, and what they did, is no part of that reality. But that's initiated by the legislature for a political ploy to get people to come to the ballot and vote. Okay, that's and while you're at it, here's a list of Republicans you ought to vote for. So to have a 60% rate of passage for these initiatives is, I believe, an effort to thwart what they see coming. And I think what they see coming is issues like after Dobbs, the redistricting commission changes constitutional amendments to change how these redistricting, the makeup of the redistricting. Let's get politicians out of it, and let's have people that are not elected officials, like they do in Michigan and California and other states. Get the political people who are benefiting from the decision out of the decision making. And that, that's just common sense. Everybody understands conflict of interest. And that's, so again, I think this is an effort to thwart citizen initiatives that they see coming.
Yeah. Do you think the age limit that is kind of forcing you to sit on the sidelines now, do you think that that should be abolished? And what, will you do anything to try to affect that in the future?
No, it was on the ballot a couple of years ago, and the public spoke and said, no, we don't want to increase it to 75. That was what their option was. Now, Pennsylvania did a little smarter. They put it on the ballot, and they said, should judges retire at 75? And everybody said, yeah. Well, the limit was 70, so now it's up to 75. The wording was just, whoever did the wording to ours wasn't very clever. But anyway, do I think that we should have age limits? It's different all around the country. And, my friend in Vermont, Chief Justice Reiber, he will have to leave the bench at 90. And then, my friend in Nebraska, Mike Havikan, Chief Justice Havikan, there is no age limit. So it runs and then I have other, Chief Justice friends that when they turn 70, they turn into the Plunkin. They have to leave. They're done with their job at 70. Drop dead date is your birthday. Well, I shouldn't say drop dead date, but the date that you, must leave your job is 70. So it's different all around the country. Is 70, it sounds ridiculous because the statewide have no age limit. The legislature has no age limit, but it's a constitutional amendment. That's what it would take to change it. So let's, we're going to work with the system we have, and let's put our efforts towards things that I think are more important. And there are efforts, that I mentioned that I think are important to focus on if we're going to do anything constitutionally. I'm excited about retirement because I'm retiring from this job. I'm leaving this job, but I'm not leaving, being active and don't ask me what I'm going to do because I don't know. And I tell people that, I know what I'm going to take 4 months and just try and see what life is like as a private citizen and not having, all the pressures that I have in this job, not having, I don't know how many decisions I make a day, but I'm not going to have that. It's going to be a full stop, and on this side, I'm, crazy busy, come January 1st, 2023, the phone's not going to be ringing. I'm not going to be getting texts and emails and, inundated with all these, we need this decision. What is not going to have that. Will that be, it'll be a change, absolutely. But, as I tell more than one time in, my remarks, the Italians have a phrase for it. It's il dolce far niente. It's the sweetness of doing nothing. And I want to see what that feels like. And that's what I'm just gonna try it on, see what fits, and then see what else there is out there to do. I love to travel. I have hobbies that I have put on the back burner and not gotten to over the years because of this job, and simple pleasures like just sit down and reading a novel and not worried about, oh my gosh, I got to do, this opinion, I got to do this case, I've got to get my calendar ready. Those are constant pressures. There's constant tasks that then require my attention, and there's too little time, and so that creates the pressure. And then there's no time to do the things that are recreational that I would do. And I know that some psychologist or psychiatrist would say, that's not healthy. But that's been my life. And now I'm going to look forward to doing things like just sitting down and reading for pleasure, and fly fishing, which I love to do, and travel, and spending time. I got 6 grandchildren. I've missed a lot of sports events, games, and things that they've been involved with because of just my schedule. And so now that's going to change. I'm involved with them now. Don't get me wrong, but I'll be more involved, which will be a pleasure. And so I've got a lot to look forward to. And I also, I'm going to, see what a service I can be. I've got to be of service in some way. I can't just be self-indulgent for the rest of my life and be a dilettante. That's not going to be me. But I don't know what I'm going to do.
Yeah. Any great regret thing is something you wish you would have done different?
No, I mean, I look at, the responsibilities. I've hired great people to do great things. And this court has really, I think, in the last, 12 years, been managed extremely well. I have a national profile for doing, really good work with good people. So I don't think I could ask for more. My staff likes me. That's a good thing. They respect me, and I respect them. I've made friendships with people working here, and they're not only employees, but they're friendships, and certainly I care about everybody, and I know so much about the staff and what's going on in their lives, and I make that intentional, and so no regrets there. Do I regret leaving? I'm going to miss it. I'd be lying if I said I'm not. I'm going to not miss everything about the job, but I'm going to miss it. But I'm also, I'm a person with a lot of curiosity. What's around the corner? That's always been kind of my motivator. If you notice, I went from being a judge, common pleas court judge, just got elected with, over 70 or about 70%. I retired from that to become the county prosecutor because I felt that there was a need, to do that. And then I left there to become a lieutenant governor. Again, there's this progression of great jobs that I've had. And a lot of it is motivated by my curiosity. Okay, what's that about? What can I do? It's just the way that I'm wired, I guess. So I'm curious about the future. What's that going to bring? One of the things I should say, I know we're getting to the end here, that I am going to be the first retired Chief Justice. Since we've elected Chief Justices in the 1912 Constitution, this job was provided for, designated Chief Justice. It's voted for statewide. And I was the 10th, and obviously there were 9 men that went before me, and they either left office because they were defeated at the polls, or they died in office. So I am the first one who obviously will not be defeated because I'm not standing for election, and I've been elected to this position, thankfully. And all I have to do is stay alive till midnight on the 31st of December, and I'll have broken that record. And I'll be leaving healthy and, alive.